year. On the average, an adult consumes more than 1,400 pounds of food each year. How much does he spend on food? Billions. More than $100 billion are spent on food each year. 83 billion is spent on food eaten at home. 25 billion goes to the food manufacturer for processing and packaging. In fact, out of every dollar spent on food, an average of 30 cents goes to the manufacturer for services. What you eat before and during pregnancy may determine the future of your unborn child. If you are an expectant mother, or if you plan to be one in the future, your unborn child should have the nutrients needed during pregnancy for many reasons. The effect of malnutrition on the development and functioning of the central nervous system depends on when the deprivation occurs, how long it lasts, and how severe it is.
This is the expectant mother that I'm talking about, should provide adequately for the unborn child. And I want to stress that the teenagers are very often our mothers today, and it's important that their food habits be adequate prior to conception. And within the group, when she becomes pregnant, she does need to increase more of the milk group, some more of the foods, and especially the high iron foods in the meat group, and increase some of the vegetables and fruits and some of the bread and cereals. Her doctor usually gives her some good guidelines on that. But what's important is that she gets more of the body-building nutrients. That's the protein, the calcium, iron, and some of the vitamins.
Consider first the effect of nutrition on the structure of the central nervous system. The most rapid period of growth of the brain is from 3 months before to 6 months after birth. And 90% of all postnatal brain growth occurs in the first 3 years. At birth, the infant has 63% of his adult head circumference. At 1 year, 83.6%, and at 3 years, 90%. Now contrast these percentages with those for weight. At birth, the infant has about 6% of his adult weight. At 1 year, 16%, and at 3 years, 24%. This period, therefore, is crucial from the standpoint of the need for nutritive supplies and their effects on brain growth. Growth of the brain and other structures of the central nervous system is dependent on the supply of energy and nutrients and on the internal environment that will build these highly specialized tissues. So, you see, nutrition does play an important role in equipping the child for life.
All the nutrients that we've been discussing, a person who has a diet that includes all the basic 4 food groups plus a little extra foods that have the iron in will have an adequate diet, and therefore what is good for the physical development is also good and adequate for the mental development. And I think one of the things that I'd like to mention is that the parents should set examples of what to eat, and they should eat 3 square meals a day and a variety of foods from each of the groups. This helps to encourage the children to do that.
How can Black Americans' favorite dishes seen earlier in this film be prepared without high animal fat content and still taste good?
Well, I think that if they did more of the boiling and less of the frying, this would be one way of cutting down the fat. But they could use some of the oils and margarine instead of the animal fat, such as butter or the fat from the beef or the chicken. There are many ways of presenting their food, and I think they do a great job taste-wise and using the herbs and the seasoning. And they do have foods from all of the 4 food groups. So it's just cutting down some of the fats and as Dr. mentioned, a little less of the salt in the preparation.
Mrs. Brown, as a teacher who has had the privilege of teaching in the public school system, what are some of the problems teachers encounter in regards to poor nutrition in students?
Well, one of the problems that I have encountered is that my children are very tired when they come to school. They're sleepy halfway through the morning, They put their heads down and they cannot go on with the work. They get irritable very fast because they are tired and they don't have the energy to participate in class activities.
Mrs. Brown, what can our federal government do to help both teachers and parents understand that a child must have a well-balanced breakfast before coming to school, if one expects that child to learn?
Well, one of the things that I think our federal government can do and is doing is setting up centers around the country that will provide hot breakfast for some of our children whose parents cannot give them breakfast before they come to school. Some of our schools have breakfast centers within the school where children can go to have some type of hot cereal or some kind of cold cereal. Along with the breakfast program, we advocate that our federal government give the schools adequate money for the hot lunch program so that our children aren't eating potato chips and drinking Kool-Aid instead of having the soup and the sandwich, which the government does provide for many of our schools in the target areas.
The indifferent attitudes of young adults toward eating is often related to a poor diet. When young adults were asked why they did not eat better, many of them said they didn't have time. However, they were really saying, I don't care about what I eat. I don't think it's important. How can we show that what our youth eats makes a difference now and later? One bit of advice: do not preach to them. Adults who nag and preach to young people often make the situation worse. Some young people react by deliberately eating all the wrong foods or going on fad diets. Above all, do not voice their strong dislikes for food with values in the presence of children. Certainly. Parents cannot solve the problems of young adults' eating habits. We can only provide good food and teach our youth the facts of what makes a well-balanced diet. In the end, our children themselves must take the important action.
It is important that the children enjoy friendship with their buddies, you know, and go to the same places. And it is a fad right now to have the hamburger and Coke. If, however, the Coke and hamburger is in addition to his essential needs for the day, especially for calories and energy foods, he's apt to put on weight. So that it should be considered as part of his total day's intake. The other thing, that if the money is limited and he does have a problem with controlling his weight at a desired level, he needs to weigh the fact that a soft drink has just calories. It has none of the other nutrients. Well, if he'd had milk in place of a soft drink, you can see that he had the calories plus protein, calcium, riboflavin, and some of the other essential nutrients. There's nothing wrong with a hamburger. It's great sources of, or the hot dog, of protein and cereal, so that he should count it as part of his day's intake for the cereal and the protein. There is no magic formula for getting teenagers to select a good diet. The way you approach the problem may differ entirely from the way someone else does. You will have to stretch your imagination.
How can parents help bring about better health care in their families?
I think the answer to that is really awareness. Being aware of what is good nutrition, being aware of what is generally accepted now as good health care and immunizations, and following through on these things.
Well, one of the main problems I have are my working parents. Many of them must leave early in the morning and do not have time to make sure their children have breakfast before they come to school. One of the things they can do is, when shopping, buy foods that are very easy for the children themselves to prepare, such as frozen waffles and French toast that they can put in the toaster and eat those before they leave in the morning, boxed cereals, and the egg substitutes. Any of these things before they come to school will certainly help them along the way. And try not to buy as many of the goodies that our children like to bring to school, the potato chips and the dill pickles and the candy, and try to steer our children more in the way of our good, healthy foods.
Well, I would suggest that, first of all, they plan a menu using a 3-meal-a-day pattern, and which could be 3 meals a day plus snacks, so that they have incorporated the 4 food groups throughout the day in each one of their meals. Then, with a shopping list made from the menu, go to the store and select foods that are available. During the winter time, it's not very feasible to buy fresh fruits and vegetables that are scarce because the price will be high. And actually, the canned and the frozen foods can be just as nourishing because they've been picked, under ideal situations, and the nutrients have been preserved. So that I would suggest that they buy the foods by looking at the price, and we're fortunate that most of our stores have good pricing, and also the canned and frozen items now are labeled. There's some very good nutrition information on the labels of food, and suggest that the parents read these.
Above all, nothing comes before your health, because you can't improve on staying alive. There is nothing more important in your life than seeing that you and your children have a well-balanced diet each and every day. Clinton Solomon from Lee Creative Communications, wishing you health and peace.
To do something, yeah, to save the children. Soon it will be their turns to try and save the world. We've got to do something, yeah, to save the children. To save the children. To save the children.